1 year ago, we had a sexual assault webinar where voices were validated with incredible platforms and survivors. And today, I am so honored to continue the conversation with all of you. So all of my friends that are in cyberspace here on Zooms and all my friends out there who are listening to this, I want to today empower, I want to support, I want to validate, and I just want everyone to love one another the best they can. Speaking on this platform is this incredible honor. I use the word honor again because it is something that is something so special to me in my world that I live in and the people that I connect to. And I just want to thank you all for making today possible. So from my heart to your heart, thank you guys. I just wanted to also comment before I go through the panel of really great people that I have here today, that of course sexual assault affects everyone, regardless of age, gender, ethnicity, or race. And it definitely is a global pandemic that needs awareness and attention too. There are definitely some federal laws I think that we can talk about that are on the books right now. So without me getting too much into detail right now, I think we'll definitely discuss some of that. Each state has different laws for sexual assault, and that definitely needs to be addressed as well. And without getting too much wordy into what I want to talk about, I think it's time to introduce our panel. So we can just start with Julia, if you just want to say hi to everybody and talk about how we met and what you do and a little bit about your platform and why you are here. So thank you, Julia.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. So we met while you saw me when I was doing an Instagram Live with a dear friend of ours, Josette Kasich, and we were talking about my new book, Revolutionary Beauty. And then I was honored to be on an Instagram Live with you last week where we talked about, I'm a gut health expert and an author and a teacher. And what we were talking about was the relationship between trauma and gut health, and then specifically sexual abuse, sexual violence, and gut health. I am a sexual abuse survivor. I spent most of my first 20 years hospitalized with debilitating illnesses and disease, environmental sensitivity, arthritis, asthma, allergies. Doctors told my parents I wouldn't survive to be 17. And so my healing took the next 10 years where I put my body back together. And I also brought into this mix being a sexual abuse survivor. I was abused by my dad, and then I had 3 very violent rapes when I was a young teenager. And that's very common from people that have had family abuse. Because we are already not living in our body and we're already disassociating, and also having the amount of pain and trauma that I was having. So that's a part of my healing. And what I discovered, I'm a colon therapist, and discovered as I healed my own body, and gut health was the key to healing my body and saving my life. I discovered as a colon therapist, and I've been in practice 40 years, that I have never had a sexual abuse survivor or a trauma survivor who does not have gut health issues. They may not know they have gut health issues because they may be diagnosed as emotional, mental, something else, but their traumas have to do with what's going on in their gut. Of course, our trauma affects everything else as well, but I've discovered that healing the gut absolutely does help heal our trauma. That's only one of the modalities I use to heal my sexual abuse and my trauma. But because of my own personal experience, I became adept at really identifying sexual abuse survivors, maybe even before they recognized it themselves as abuse survivors, because after all, we're conditioned to not be aware that we're being abused when it's happening. And so that's very much a part of what my mission in the world is. And so why I am so personally honored and excited to be here, because to survive and thrive sexual assault is what we are all here to promote and to give hope and empowerment to people that are, no matter where they are in their healing journey, we're here to hold that space for them.
Julia, thank you so, so much for sharing that. And yeah, when we were having our conversation on the Instagram Live, I knew that there was probably a little bit more to the story, and I'm honored and thank you so much for sharing.
Mm.
Thank you. Cindy, you want to hop on?
Yeah, hi, I'm Cindy Villanueva, and we met similarly. I was on a podcast, Robin's Sciarra's Tuesday podcast, and then I was very delighted to be a part of your Instagram Live maybe a month or two ago, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was just a delight, and I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
It's really, truly an honor to be a part of this with all of these fabulous people. So I am an author as well. I wrote a book last year called "Don't Fight Mad," and it's a story. I am a martial artist. I'm a 7th degree black belt. I own a martial arts studio in Austin, Texas. And I wrote a book, basically part memoir, part self-help, part inspiration, talking about how you recover from tragedy and trauma and disappointment and, bad stuff that happens in your life, whether it was something that happened to you or mistakes you made and you're suffering the consequences, using martial arts as the metaphor. At my studio, I will say I'm part of an organization. There's over 40 schools around the country. Only 5 of us are owned by women, which is very cool. And I have women instructors. I have a lot of women black belts, and we do a lot of self-defense seminars at my school. A lot of times we have, especially in July and August, we have moms who come to us and say, hey, my daughter's going off to college and I want her to come in, and they'll bring in, 20 or 30 of them, and they'll come in and they'll work with their moms, and it's really super, super cool. And, we talk a lot about, technique. I can show you a few things. I'm not going to teach you how to be a black belt in the space of a 2-hour seminar, but I can teach you a couple of things that are going to help you have a little more confidence. But before we ever even get on the mat and actually start touching each other, we talk. And what I tell the women, whether they're Girl Scouts or college age, or, I'm 60, if they're my age, whatever comes in my door, I let them know, first and foremost, it starts here. And you have to believe that you deserve to be safe. And that sounds so like duh, but it's so important. You
Yeah.
have to believe that you deserve to be safe, because once you make that switch in your head, then all the other things that I can teach you, you can use. But if you don't really believe that you deserve it, you're never going to use anything else that I teach you. And so that's sort of the beginning of what I do, and that's how we got involved. And I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, Cindy, thank you so much. And I remember the comment we mentioned, deserve to be safe. So I'm definitely going to circle back to that as we progress through the panel, and want to definitely expand on that. Thank you so much. And I'm honored to have met you. Absolutely. Part of the package here. All right, Caitlin, Kate, my girlfriend Kate. What's up?
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
My name's Caitlin. I am 22 years old, and I am the advocacy director for a relatively new nonprofit called Walk with Dignity. We support survivors of sexual violence by creating care kits that we send to hospitals. Oftentimes, survivors of sexual assault have to choose between walking out in a paper gown so they can give their clothes over to police, or remaining clothed and potentially giving up their only pathway to justice whenever they're in the hospital. We try to alleviate them having to make that choice by providing clothing and different things so they can get cleaned up with after they are taken care of by hospital staff. I came to meet Helene through Instagram. I was working on our Walk with Dignity Instagram, and we just sort of found each other. And it's been incredible to work with Helene over the past year and a half. I do have my own story of being raped by someone in college. Um, and I am one of the people who didn't realize that what had happened was wrong until a while later, and I really thought about how it made me feel and what had happened. And from there, I realized that it connected a lot with the mental health struggles I was having. I'm a big advocate for mental health as well. And I try to focus a lot of my work on making sure other people know that they're not alone and that it's okay to need help. We all need help sometimes. And I wish I would have known that sooner in life.
Caitlin, Kate. Yeah, we definitely had a cool connection. And last year, of course, Kate and Jen and Madison, there was a group of young women and so forth who shared some stories. And I was so honored to have you guys then, and beyond the moon to have you back. And we also did an Instagram Live that was really cool and interesting. And your voice is needed. Your voices are all needed, specifically on the college campus, which I was going to talk about. There's a company that I'm collaborating a little bit right now with called Nightcap. And I don't know if you guys have heard of that or not. I actually saw them on Shark Tank. I'm giving a little promo here, but not really. But they're the nicest people. It's a brother and a sister. And what it is, it's a wristband that you would wear, like a scrunchie, not a wristband. I said that wrong. It's actually a scrunchie. And the young woman's name is Shira. And she had a dream one night, I guess a friend of hers or something in college, possibly, I don't know the full story, had a situation of sexual assault. She was so disturbed by it. She went to sleep that night, had this dream about the scrunchie being able to be pulled over a Solo cup or any type of a glass, where you could not be, like, basically you pull it over the cup, and then it would be, obviously, if you're pulling something over the cup, a substance cannot be put into your cup when you're in a social setting. So I've had the honor to connect with them. They're trying, the reason I'm even bringing this to the conversation is that they're now trying, and I'm going to be helping them all the way if they want me to support, going to college campuses and promoting this product, this brand for them, because I feel so passionately about it in so many different facets of life, specifically on the college campuses and so forth, where it's greatly needed. So, back to you, Kate, and of course, Jen, and being in college and having those environments. I mean, look, no environment is great, but specifically in certain environments where things do happen. And Kate started, or actually Madison started, this organization, Walk with Dignity, Cor-a, at Penn State. So I feel like Nightcap and you guys and me, we're going to blow this out and just, how should I say, do the best we can to support, obviously, this pandemic of what's going on. So, Kate, thank you so much for your beautiful words. And moving on to Normanda. Love Normanda.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi, Helene.
Hi.
I love you to death as well. How we actually connected was, I believe it was your intern had reached out to our practice.
Crazy.
And she was like,
Crazy.
hey, I'm part of this
Crazy.
podcast, and we're going to know if any of your therapists there would be interested in doing this. So I accepted to do it, and very excited that I did, because I've absolutely loved being part of the podcast last year, and I know we've talked a couple of times as well. So a little bit about myself. Sorry, I got allergies going on. Benefits of living in Kentucky. Um, so I am a licensed professional clinical counselor. I have been in practice for 7 years now. I have experience working in inpatient community mental health, and I'm now in a group practice for the last 3 years. And my specialty includes trauma, depression, anxiety, and life transitions. And trauma work is my absolute favorite. I don't know many people who would say, I love trauma, but I do. And specifically, I have a passion and a heart working with people with varying different types of trauma, especially with sexual abuse. And right now, I'm working on getting my certification in trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy. After I just have to do a test. It was a 1.5 year long process between trainings, a year's worth of consultation. And as soon as that is done, I'm going on to cognitive processing, which is a form used for adults that are 25 and older. TFCBT is used with children as young as 6, and you can actually use it up to adults age about 25. And so, what I really love about mental health is validating people's experiences, because I see this quite a bit. People who have survived sexual assault, their stories a lot of times are not validated either even on a personal level and especially a societal level. So being able to have this platform to talk about how, Helene, we were talking about this the other day, how I see trauma is we want to tell our story, process our story, and repackage it to where it's a part of our story, but it doesn't dictate it anymore. And so that's how I see mental health. So I'm excited to be here, and I appreciate all of you so much with what you're about to share.
Yeah, Normanda, thank you. And thank you, of course, for your beautiful words and obviously your incredible information. Normanda is definitely my source of a lot. When I want to know clinical things, that's where I go to. There's so much tremendous amount of information out there regarding mental health and so forth, referencing trauma. And what Normanda was mentioning a moment ago is about when you repackage your story, and I'm definitely going to get to that when we go through everybody to have their piece to speak. Repackaging it in a way that it doesn't create the trauma, but they're able to speak of it, which I greatly appreciate that you can do that. So thank you so much, Normanda. And now we're going to move to Jen. Hi, Jen.
Hello.
Hi. How's that
So
yeah.
yeah, I was on the podcast. It was a year ago. Like, how long ago was it? A year ago? A full year?
Our webinar is about a year, and then you hopped on with Kate to say hi on an Instagram Live, I think in October, November, or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of, I hope you can hear me. Actually,
Yeah.
can you hear me pretty good?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're good. Yeah.
You're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay.
So it's not you, it's me on my end. But yeah, I was on the podcast a year ago. I can't even remember how I was reached out to, but I've been pretty active on Instagram with, various pages, just trying to get my own story out there. At the time, I was molested for 2 years, and yeah, it's been a crazy process. I was pretty much going through like the legal process of charging this guy about 10 years after it happened, and I it's kind of like shooting an arrow in the dark. Like, I had no idea how it was all going to work, and I realized the process of it all was like very traumatizing, and I didn't feel like there was a lot of support. So coming on to your podcast and like meeting Caitlin and like all the other people that I've connected through, it's been really nice because I've kind of found that, little community. But yeah, it was a similar story when to, kind of like a Stockholm syndrome vibe. When I was a kid and I was molested, I thought this guy like loved me, and I didn't even realize until 10 years after that, oh, this wasn't normal. Oh, it wasn't normal that I dated someone that was so much older than me. And yeah, so it's been a huge personal journey, just trying to, find out who I really am outside of trauma, basically.
Exactly.
And it's been a year since it's all happened, but since I've decided to charge him, I mean, I'm still going through the like legal process, and it was actually trial was set for May 9th, and it's been continued and pushed forward because of COVID. So yeah, I'm still in the process, probably for a while, probably for another year or two, but I'm doing a lot better than I was since the last podcast. So it's interesting to look back and,
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
Good. No, I'm so happy that you are. Well, thank you, Jen, for, taking your time today to come on and say hi to us and of course share your story with Caitlin as well, and being a part of Cor-a and Walk with Dignity, and having so many different types of voices of, like I said, sexual assault affects everyone, and having your voice I so appreciate, and I'm honored that you shared, and I'm honored to have met you, and when we get through the next one is of course Zane coming on. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the laws with sexual assault, because maybe I'm not aware of some things that maybe you're aware that you could like to share as well. So thank you. All right, Zane.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
So my name is Zane Landon. I'm actually still in university. I'm about to graduate with a degree in communication, and I am incredibly passionate about mental health, storytelling, as well as disability awareness. And when you look at the statistics or the intersections of sexual assault and mental health and disability, it's at a very high level. And I think it's because, through society and just storytelling, we think of people with mental health and disabilities as helpless. And so it's very easy to take advantage and use them for that. And so my story, I have been in different situations where minor assaults as well as sexual harassment from different women, different men, a lot of different groups. And coming from my mental health journey of suicidal thoughts, self-harm, it was very hard for me to heal from that stuff and just everything I was going through. And now where I am now and the advocacy work that I'm doing, I'm actually going to the White House next month for the first ever mental health youth action forum. So I'm very excited to be, advocating on, a much greater behalf from the trauma and stuff I've experienced. And I'm really grateful to be a part of this and talk more about, sexual assault and the culture around it, especially the feeling, of men can't come forward institutionally as well. I've been in many situations on campus where I did not feel comfortable talking about it. And there were definitely places where even conversations about body image were happening and men were not allowed to attend. Stuff like that is what I don't want to see on college campuses, especially when I was experiencing body issues, and I still do. Just a lot of different things that we can definitely be working on. And I'm very passionate about storytelling because I think if just starting the conversation and starting to see people's stories in the media in a positive way, in a way where it's empowering, we'll see more waves of people coming out. And I think storytelling is key to making that happen. So thank you, Elaine, again for inviting me.
Thank you, Zane. And Zane has an amazing podcast, and I'm going to promote yourself a little
I
bit.
totally forgot. I'm sorry. I didn't forget. I totally didn't mention how we met. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that I just followed Coming from the Heart. I'm the founder of Positive Vibes magazine, which I think is like the written version of Coming from the Heart. We we feature people from all walks of life who mental health advocates, and we have people that have spoken about their sexual assault journeys, people who have come from gang life and a lot of different places, and it's all about just showing their story and how they've leveraged it to be empowered and where they are today. And so that's how me and Helene met. I got to be on the podcast in October of 2020. So
I know.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, Zane rocks it. His hand is in so many facets of mental health. Thank you, Zane, for being you. And so proud that he's going to be going to the White House, which I want to be going with you. I'm going to try to squeeze through the gates with you and speak, of course, on mental health, because that's just, he was picked, actually. He's being a little, shy about that. But yeah, he was picked. It was a group of how many people are going to do that, Zane?
30 people.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
They announced the celebrity advocate. It's going to be Selena Gomez. That's going to be exciting.
Wow.
That in itself. Wait, that's amazing. That's amazing. So incredible stuff going on in regards to mental health and, of course, with sexual assault. And I think that's a good segue just to go on right now. And I want to get back to some things I was just jotting down as people were, you guys were talking, that mental health is so much a part of sexual health. It cannot be separated. It's two entities that obviously that are molded together. I think, Normanda, if I just want to go to you for a moment, being that you are the clinical your degree, clinical therapy, reiterate that again.
Yeah, clinical counselor.
Clinical counselor, okay. But you're going for a certain certification for trauma?
Yes, it's trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, so TFCBT.
Got it. Okay, so in your practice and what you do, and people that come in that want to, share their stories with sexual assault and so forth, I guess what I'm trying to get to is maybe you can just give us a little backstory on, as a counselor, how you handle situations. I think this would be a good way just to open up a discussion and have everyone just kind of be part of this for a little bit. And, in how you go about it. What questions do you ask? What questions do you not ask? And just kind of go from there. Thank you.
Right, sure, absolutely. So number one, when I first sit down with a client for the first time, obviously one of the things that I will do is ask them, like, have you ever done therapy before, and what do you expect? And so I think it's really important, especially people who have been sexually abused, to kind of be able to ask those questions, like, okay, what do you do, and how's this going to look, or I've never done it, and also to give them a sense of, I guess, a peace of mind
Mhm.
of what to expect with therapy. And so as I'm going through getting to know them and things of that nature, that rapport, research says, counts for about 83% of change we see in clients. And that's a big part.
Mhm.
And then everything else is our interventions and other things of that nature. But that therapeutic relationship is key. And so one of the things, if if I was in my office at work, I would show you all, like, my office. I wanted to create a space that is very comforting, it's very bohemian. I will be honest. I have salt lamps and things of that nature because I want it to be a very peaceful place. I want it to be. I think of therapy as very, my office, it sounds very cliche, of a healing sanctuary. I want that to be a place they can come in and they can, let their guard down. And that's very difficult for people who've been sexually abused because that has been violated by people who they've trusted. Sexual assault, back in the day, we think, oh, stranger danger and things of that nature. No, actually, sexual assault occurs typically by the people we know that are supposed to protect us and keep us safe and have our well-being in mind. And so these clients, any client, I tell them, I'm like, we're gonna have to build trust and respect. One of the things I will ask them, as I've built rapport and things of that nature, I start working with them a little bit about psychoeducation about sexual assault. I do not ever, 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 ever ask the client, what were you wearing when you were sexually assaulted? That has absolutely nothing to do with it. I don't know if any of you all have seen, but there's actually an exhibit. Pre-COVID, they were doing this. I don't know if they've started doing it again, where they were going around different places showing survivors' clothing they wore when they were sexually assaulted.
Mm.
And it shows, it doesn't matter. I've told clients, I said, look, you could sit butt naked on a couch and nobody should ever touch you, period. And so being able to validate, also being able to, I go with them about, well, how did they view sexual assault? Because that dialogue they hear growing up, even just like, oh, did you hear about so and so? I've had people say, well, my mom would say, well, she should have been out late at night. If they hadn't been doing this, so victim blaming can happen quite a bit, which is very unfortunate. And so, especially with your therapist, it's very important that a therapist does not use blaming language. It's being able to say, this did happen to you, and being able to give them that space to share what that was like, even going through the whole process of reporting it if they did, or helping them process what do they feel like is best for them. Do they feel like it would benefit them to report it? Do they feel like, no, I'm not in a space, I'm not ready? So that's another thing, is meeting your clients where they are. I find that extremely important because I don't want to push a client ever into something they're not ready for. And it's not my place. Like, I joke with people. I was like, I do not want the power to ever tell a human what to do. That's too much power for me. No, thank you. I'm here to provide support and collaborate with you and help you to walk through what you've been through, and then see, as I'm educating them on, you know as well. I know, I forget who it was on here, was talking about gut health. I forgot your name, I'm so sorry.
Julia.
Julia, there you are. Like, I talk about, so as counselors, so there are social workers, there's clinical psychologists, and then there are counselors. And as a counselor, my approach is a wellness approach, which I don't look at just a person's symptoms like depression, anxiety, things of that nature. I look at their social aspect, their physical health, their mental health, how's their jobs impacted, how is their, intellectual goals in life, or how they are as a human being. If they have another thing too with sexual assault is talking with them, or do they have any specific value sets? Do they grow up? I've been seeing this quite a bit lately. Clients who've been sexually assaulted, especially in the South, there is religious trauma associated as well. And so a lot of times I'm kind of working with both religious trauma and the people in that religious, and I'm using that very loosely, group had actually assaulted these people. And so these clients that I have. And so being able to work with them, deprogramming in a sense that dogma and things that have been placed upon them and have made them feel like there's something wrong with me. I did something wrong, which that's not the case at all. I also use, I don't know if you all, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of her by now, Brene Brown.
Yes.
She has her PhD in social work. I love Brene. Some people are like, I don't know, but I really love her work because she talks about the difference between between the difference between guilt and shame. So shame says, there's something wrong with me. I am this because of this and so forth. Guilt can actually be a motivator, such as, okay, well, I didn't go for a walk today. I kind of feel crappy. So next time I'm going to go for a walk. But a lot of people who have survived sexual assault, there is that shame dialogue that happens. And I also have the clients explore, where is the shame coming from? What lens are you looking at this through? Is it really you, or is it the person who abused you? Is this the people around you? This is what society tells you? So being able to kind of flesh that out to figure out them, who am I? Because when I work with clients, it's also helping empower them, give them back their control. And so even something as simple as, if I have a client do something in session, we're going to write, this may seem like a strange, like, what, Normanda, this is the way you help get people control. If I ask them a question such as, hey, do you prefer a pen or pencil? And they're like, it doesn't matter. I was like, well, I'm all out of that. So would you like a pen or would you like a pencil? To have them know they have a choice. Tell me what you want. Do you want my salt lamps on? Do you want them off? And just those little micro behaviors build so much into helping them develop that foundation again of, I can take back my voice. I can take back my power. So I don't know if that's all makes sense, but that's kind of my view on it.
No, amazing, amazing, amazing. I just want to circle back. If anyone have any, pop in. Remember, you're in my kitchen, guys, even though you're on Zoom and you're in all these places. Thoughts? Anybody want to chime in a little bit? Yes? No?
I'll say something.
Sure.
I am a huge advocate for therapy. However, obviously not everyone has like accessibility to it because it's very expensive. But since going through the trial, I've been, I'm fortunate enough to have my therapy paid for me by the state that it happened in. So I'm also in cognitive behavioral therapy, and I got like diagnosed with PTSD and a couple other diagnoses based off of everything that's happened. The thing that happened to me was kind of like the tip of the iceberg, but like, essentially it has like, since the last time I was on here, it's been a whole year, and it's been night and day in terms of my mental health. So if you can afford therapy, it is the best. I think Zane maybe will relate to this, but I think there's a huge stigma on, like, in general, anyone getting therapy, but especially for men. And I just think it's, if you can afford it and you're fortunate enough to be able to do it, then it's just absolutely worth it, because it's one of those things you don't want to do. And you're like, it's a lot of work. I would rather just avoid, compartmentalize. But it does creep up on you, and it is just a huge difference. So just say
And
that.
and when it comes to finding something that is affordable, because it is expensive, and a lot of people, I won't get on my soapbox about insurance, but insurance companies actually dictate what therapists can charge. So it's very frustrating, extremely frustrating. However, some things I could tell people to look into is some agencies do offer sliding scale fees. Some do have master level clinical interns. So these are college students who, just like a doctor in residency, are getting ready to become therapists, and they're under supervision to be able to, and they're supervised by a counselor who has their supervisor license, which I do now, by the way. I actually supervise now people with their associate's license and clinical interns. And that's a completely free service. So that's something that people could contact those agencies and say, hey, do you all have any interns? Um, or there are counselors. So if someone has my license, which in Kentucky is an LPCC, counselors, we are allowed to barter. Our license is. So if you have someone with a counselor license like mine, you can ask them, hey, can we do gift cards? Can we do this? Can we do that? We are one of the licensed and the only one that can actually do the barter system because of that reason. Because, a lot of times we're serving areas that may not or may not be able to afford those services. In Bowling Green, some universities, you may check to see if they have their own counseling center that aren't just for college students. Ours here in Bowling Green is the Tally Family Counseling. It is a free community service for anyone in Bowling Green. And again, it is interns, master level intern clinicians, and they're open all year round. So just want to throw that out there that can be an option for people as well.
Thank you. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, thank you. Normanda, we want to clone you. We're just going to clone you. And
I think
that's fine.
I think my husband would be like, please don't, please don't clone her.
She has such a heart that's so beautiful, and she's so smart with so much stuff. And you guys, if you have any questions, and that goes for anyone who, of course, will be listening to the podcast on Spotify or Apple, they can always reach out, and we'll give information and stuff where they can find you for resources of information, because I think it's just, you're plentiful of that. What I was going to get to, because I know some people have a little time restraints here, is Julia, if you just want to just comment a little bit. I mean, I know that, I'm so interested in everyone's platform. And again, the focus, of course, is of course sharing stories, but of course on empowerment. And of course, I keep using the word of course because I can't think of another word. When going through any type of a trauma, specifically sexual assault, and you can get the right resources, as Normanda was talking about, and Jen fortunately has gotten those resources now, to feel empowered by, rewriting your narrative, as Normanda was mentioning earlier that we were talking about, in any type of trauma situation. So if you just want to, comment a little bit, Julia, on anything that was mentioned about empowerment, of course, what your platform is about as well.
Since we're going to go out to the world and people that are just not even right here today, and to all of you who are here today, and wow, I'm so blown away. This could be like a whole entire weekend, because everyone here has so much to share. I could listen to each one of you for 8 hours each. So thank you to all of you. But just for anybody who's listening to this, so my website, julialoggins.com, I have a lot of free services on it. So all of the quizzes, I happen to, when being in the hospital a lot, I read a lot, and so I loved quizzes. I thought they were so fun. So I'm a designer of quizzes. So I love quizzes, and I design quizzes. And when anyone takes a quiz on my website, they receive a free audiobook, or a free download of a book. And all of my books teach step-by-step processes for the understanding of how trauma affects gut health, and the understanding that which I love. Number one, I love the idea that we have to feel that we deserve to live. When our beautiful martial artist brought that up, that we have to feel we deserve to be here. I certainly did not feel I deserved to be here until I did some deep work on myself, and that was part of my own healing process. But what my books talk about, so that people have free resources, is to make how to make really simple, tiny steps that will make a huge difference in how they physically feel and the level of mental clarity they have. Because when we're feeling foggy, and when we're trauma survivors, we are foggy. That is part of the trauma. So and our gut is completely affected. That's our solar plexus. That's that area where we were invaded and violated. So healing that allows us to reconnect to ourselves. And many trauma survivors are, when I meet them, they're barely in their body. I mean, their spirit is like hovering in the room and their body is over here. So making the body a safe place to be is the focus of my work. And I have gift codes and coupon codes for all of my courses. So all trauma survivors, I give breaks to, so that, I've never turned away a client. I feel like everybody here we're on the same wavelength. We never turn anyone away. So I never turn anyone away. If someone wants to do one of my online courses or have one of my services that they don't think they can afford, please reach out to me. Because if you want to heal yourself and you're willing to fight for your life, I will fight with you.
Thank you, Julia. Amazing, amazing. Thank you. So again, getting back to resources, and of course, focusing on what we're getting to today is empowerment. Your platform, your voice, of course, going through trauma, and now trying to have this power of empowerment as we empower one another, to, of course, to ourselves here today, and obviously to the people who are listening to the podcast as well. I wanted to hop to Cindy, because I know that Cindy has a little bit of a time restraint as well. Cindy?
Yeah, sorry, let me unmute myself.
So Cindy,
you want to hear my voice.
Oh my goodness. Empowerment.
I loved what you said, Normanda, about it basically giving us back agency, right? When you go through a difficult situation like that, you lose all agency. And that's part of coming back to life, I think. And that's why one of the things that we really stress is that the mindset has to precede the self-defense techniques. And we talk a lot about, like I said, about you deserve to be safe. You deserve, like you were saying, I think it was Joe Biden actually who said, this has probably been 40 years, but he was talking about assault. And he said, a woman should be able to walk stark naked across the Capitol Mall holding a handful of $100 bills and still be safe. And that's absolutely, unequivocally, non-negotiably true. But we don't believe that. We think, even for us progressive women, if we saw a woman like that and then we found out something happened to her, we'd be fighting that thought that, oh, that was kind of stupid. One of the things that I do tell the women in my self-defense seminars is that most crimes, if they're outside, aside from the ones that we're talking about today, the family or people that but if you're out in the street, you go to the mall, you're at school, these are crimes of opportunity. And so you want to minimize the opportunity. But one of the things I say right off the bat is, look, I have a group of 30 people in my class right now. I guarantee you there are at least 5 of you in here who have suffered some kind of sexual assault. So hear me clearly. I am not saying it's your fault at all, ever, never. The only fault to be had is the bad guy. So understand me from that perspective. And let's do everything we can to minimize that opportunity. And so we talk a lot about, we've all been in that situation where we're walking out of the mall, we've got the phone on our shoulder, and we've got our bag, and we're trying to find our keys, don't remember where we parked. Years ago, I used to work for Estee Lauder. I was a regional in California. So for anybody who knows California, I was from Carmel up to Santa Rosa, which is a huge territory. And I'd be up and down in different stores. And you know, by 9 o'clock at night, I'm walking out the door and like, I can't even remember what mall I'm in, much less which store I'm in. And I got to the point where I would make myself a little sticky note and I'd stick it in my purse that said, okay, I parked outside Nordstrom. I'm outside Men's Shoes. I'm on slot 14B. And every time I would go to a different store, I would replace it with a new sticky note so that I would always remember. And I never, ever felt badly about asking somebody to walk me to my car. And even today, like I've got 7 stripes on my black belt. But you know what? A couple of years ago, I was at Safeway. I was at the grocery store at 11 o'clock at night because that's what I do because I'm busy during the day. And there was this guy in there and he was kind of following me around. It was just uncomfortable. And there's a part of me that's like, I'm a badass black belt. Nobody's going to bother me. And then there's another part of me that goes, Cindy, don't be daft. I get through, I check out and I say, you know what, would you mind walking me to my car? And the guy goes, well, of course I'll walk you to the car. Walked me to my car. And if anything would have happened, I don't know. But you know what? I eliminated the opportunity. And so that's one of the things that I talk to women about is to the best of your ability, eliminate the opportunity. The second thing is, okay, something bad is going wrong. Don't lose your mind. You have to think, I'm getting out of this. Somebody's going home tonight. I don't know who else it's going to be, but it sure as hell is going to be me. And whatever it takes for me to go home safely tonight, I have every right to do. I have every right to use whatever it is. If I take off my stiletto and I crack you in the forehead and not my problem. If I pick up a rock and hit you, if I scream, if I choke you out, you pass out and you know what? You end up dying the next day, not my problem. So getting it through our heads that we deserve to be safe and that whatever it takes to be safe, we have every right to use.
Wow. Thank you, Cindy.
I'm getting all worked up, but it's
no. I'm seeing.
We don't believe. So many of us don't believe that.
Yeah.
So many of us get in the position, and something bad happens, and it's like, oh God, if only I hadn't done this. If only. No. If only the bad guy didn't exist in the world. That's the only salient issue. So now do whatever you need to do to get out of that and be safe. And so that's when we move on to the mat, and I teach them usually 5 different techniques, standing and on the ground. And what I normally do is I have some of my male black belts who come in, and I always say, you know, if you don't want to be touched, if you're uncomfortable with this, by all means, let me know. You just partner with your mom or with your friend. But I prefer to have them on their backs, on the ground, and one of my black belts between their legs. Because for most women, we feel like that's the absolute worst position we could be in. And the truth of the matter is, it's not. There's a worse position than that. And I can teach you a whole bunch of stuff to get out of that, or at least to give as good as you get in that position. And so I want them to get that kind of, I mean, it's never going to be exactly, and I don't want them to experience exactly, but I want them to have that sense of, oh God, there's that fear, there's that adrenaline dump. Now what do? Now we're going to rep it out. We're going to rep it out. We're going to rep it out, because if we don't, when it happens, you're going to lose your mind and you won't remember.
Cindy, what is the name of your studio? I'm sorry. What's the name of your studio?
I'm with the Ernie Reyes organization. It's Ernie Reyes World Martial Arts in Austin, Texas.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll add to. Oh, go ahead.
Go. Go. I know. Cindy again. Clone these people here. Okay. Good.
So I just wanted to add to it. I mean, obviously, I want to be inclusive. Like, obviously, men and women, this happens to everyone. But I do think in the world of being a woman, like, it is something that is a bit more stigmatized. Is like what you were saying about, like, I am not responsible for whatever I do to prevent this from happening. Like, as women, we're taught from a very, very young age to be very submissive. So there's, like, you know, this great quote that I've seen a lot, which is like, stop feeling the need to be polite to creepy men. And like, for me, I'm just like, yeah, I think that it's not, obviously not just men in general, it's to everybody, but as women, we are taught to be very, very submissive. And it's very, very new for me since going through the trial. It's a very huge learning curve for me, especially going through this legal thing. You have to learn to say just blunt, like, this is exactly how I feel, this is exactly what happened. And you've got to do it publicly. There's really like no, weaning out of that. And I think that, yeah, just as victims, we feel very responsible to coddle, like down to the very smallest thing. Like I walked on the street and a guy looks at me. There's someone mentioned this to me, and it's been stuck in my head ever since, but I love it. I've been practicing it every single day. But I've noticed when I walk down the street on a sidewalk, this is a very minute, like microcosm example, but like it really goes to show, like on a bigger picture, kind of the attitude that and the place that we as women put ourselves in society. So I like walk down the sidewalk and I notice I always move out of the way.
Yep.
For a man who's walking in front of me. Someone told me this, and I was like, I never realized that is something I do on a night out on a Friday night. Like, whatever. I will move out of the way. I will become submissive to avoid conflict, because I know that if I act the same way that the other person is acting, well, it's going to rise. And the only way to avoid conflict is for me to just stay right down here. And yeah, I've just been kind of living by that general attitude of, I no longer, if I'm uncomfortable, I'm going to say what I think. I'm going to say if you made me feel bad, if you've pissed me off, I'm going to tell you. And if you've went over a boundary of mine, you're going to know about it. And I think that that's kind of like the first preventative thing that you can do for yourself and in general for all women, is normalizing that use of your own voice, because we have the power. Like we are all human beings who all deserve love and respect, and there's really no reason why someone else's boundaries should be more important than my own. So yeah.
You know what, Helene, I don't want to hog up a bunch of time, but can I tell you?
No, you go, just go.
You know what, I'm going to turn the light on in my room. It's getting dark here all of a sudden.
No, I mean, your voices are amazing. And
I'm like, wait a second, it's getting dark.
I just want to quickly chime in for 1 second. Jen, what I was thinking about is that as you were saying this, the submissive part of us, culturally speaking, and then back to what Normanda was saying, these societal norms of acting a certain way or being a certain way that we sort of have to rid of. And that's really truly starts, I mean, Cindy and I were talking about that on the Instagram Live. It starts as a child, as a little one, to teach that we're equal, yeah, and that society shouldn't be bringing these norms to us feel a certain way or not. And then with Jen also, I was just thinking about the empowerment. Like I felt like when you were speaking, it was like so empowering and so strong. And congratulations on feeling like that. That's you're rocking it, and that's amazing. And that's a lot of work.
It's so funny.
Really a lot. And so I'm just so enamored by you, and thank you for your voice. Thank you.
It's funny that like oh, we're so empowered and strong, but I'm really just learning to act like normal.
Yes.
And it's really funny, like we when we congratulate ourselves, like, congratulations for, like, we're congratulating for, what are we congratulating for? To be treated with respect. And it's like, it's hilarious that it's so funny.
Right. No, you are.
I agree with you, but it's all so subconsciously. And just talking about like, I want to be inclusive. To me and Zane had like a couple of cute little messages one-on-one, but I want to be inclusive there too. It also perpetuates like this stigma on the man's side too, which is the kind of opposite end of it is be overly dominant. That's the way to be a man, is to be masculine, to be and that in turn causes them not to speak up or to be the perpetrators, either any of the situations that can happen. So the point is that like us having these gender roles on both sides really like affects everyone in the worst of ways. So the more we women speak up and the more men speak up, like we can dismantle.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. Well, I just want to just clarify something for a second. When I was saying congratulations, what I truly was meaning to the core of this is that I'm so proud that you are in a position where you've gotten therapy, back to therapy, and we're talking to Normanda, where you feel that your voice is being heard, that maybe the voice was always there, but it just wasn't able to be expressive. And what I also just really want to get to for a moment is that when someone goes through sexual assault, and back to you, Normanda, and counseling, is that it takes a really long time, and everyone's is so different in how they respond to trauma, to be able to really be able to find the voice, to be able to do this. And also what I wanted to comment too, when Cindy was talking, is that, you know, you were talking about perpetrators and people, you know, getting attacked, but what about situations where, you know, where it's a family member that did this to you? Like, and how is that, you know, how is that handled when you're specifically going into self-defense and so forth, or martial arts? Cindy, if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's horribly difficult. And I honestly think if you don't have support and you don't have a way out, it's 10 times harder. You know, if I get attacked in the parking lot, I can, you know, beat the crap out of the guy and run. If my husband assaults me or a date assaults me, that's an entirely different situation. And so I think that's where, prior to things happening, that's why we have to raise up our children to be strong, to believe in their intrinsic value. You know, I mean, I'm a mother of 4. I have 1 daughter and I have 3 boys. Believe me, I am a big fan of men. And I have raised them all to know their intrinsic value. Because, yeah, I mean, I am not the specialist. This would be a Normanda question, but you know, what would I do if I had one of my students who came to me? I'm not a mandated reporter, but I would do it anyway. I absolutely would do it. And I would make sure that that child had the support.
Yeah. I mean, that is true. Like, as a counselor, in which a counselor, psychologists, social workers, teachers, doctors, we are mandated reporters. We are required to report abuse. Sorry, my brain is like trying to catch up with my mouth today. We're required to report, you know, abuse if you're going to harm someone else, or yourself, if we're subpoenaed by the court. You know, these are things we have to report. And definitely, if I have a minor in my office saying a family member is sexually assaulting them, I have to report that. And I was just looking up online because we were talking about marital rape, and I couldn't remember the exact date, so I looked it up. Nebraska was the first state to outlaw marital rape, get this, in 1975.
Yeah.
75. I mean, that's not that long ago. And before that, it was like, well, if you're married, a woman doesn't have rights. And also, too, I think, you know, for men, especially because I work with men who've been sexually assaulted, it is greatly underreported because men are, you know, we hear this, oh, well, your teacher, you know, touched you as a kid. Wow, good job. And it's like, no, that's not okay. That wasn't a woohoo, go you. So we have that double standard in our society, for men, you know, and being able to report that, or if their wives or girlfriends are that, or doing that, or male partners. Also, too, Jen, you were talking about, you know, yeah, it's crazy just trying to find that, you know, I get congratulated for just, you know, treat me like a human being, like I have a voice. But with people who have survived sexual assault, it is being able to say, I can take up space and I matter, that I have boundaries and I am absolutely allowed to say, no, you cannot cross these.
Yeah.
And I think men and women both, that's a struggle for sure.
Yeah. I love it when people like congratulate me, like Helene, like I feel I do the same thing. It's just so funny that we all have, you know, these internal narratives about ourselves and the respect we deserve. But I want to let Caitlin. I know Caitlin has.
Caitlin, I know. Kate,
so,
Kate, we didn't forget about you. I know. Kate, go.
No, you're good. I always have so many things I want to say.
I know. Go, girl. Go ahead. Go. Yeah.
No, I agree with the congratulations thing. I love congratulating people on the work that they've done, because as someone who's gone through therapy, as someone who was raped, as someone who tried to take their own life, as someone who's just been through all of this different shit, I know I'm strong. I know I did a lot of hard work. I know that I'm a badass for getting myself through those situations. And I didn't report, I didn't ask for help. I didn't feel that that was the path for me. And I also just, it didn't fit for me. And that's all that I have to say to validate that it didn't fit for me. But I think with the congratulating people, we have to recognize that, like Jen said, it's absolute bullshit. We have to recognize this.
Absolutely.
None of the stuff that I had to go through is something that should have had to happen. And I really hate when people are like, oh, but it made you so strong. Look at you. No, it didn't. No, what it made me was took away my kindness. What it did was test my strength, and I didn't break. Not everyone can do that.
Yeah. There's nobody that's like, woohoo, that went off my bucket list, being sexually
exactly.
assaulted. Like, come on. Like, and you're totally right. It's crazy.
Insane the way that we view some of these things.
Well, I think societal norms, Kate,
absolutely.
Norms. And like, and again, to Jen, when backpedal on the congratulations again, is that
like,
no one's mad.
No, I didn't mean that.
To be clear.
What meant is that you are strong as hell, but you didn't have to go through the trauma to be strong as hell. Bottom line. Let me just clarify that.
Oh no, for sure. I get it. I did the same thing. I was just an opportunity for me to speak out on just how all of us, we're conditioned. But I do want to throw out something that Caitlin said that was really interesting. It made me kind of jump onto some other thing here. And this is not, I respect everyone's religious background. Like, if you feel like this is your own personal reasoning for why things have happened in your own life, I respect that. But I think it's really normalized in Western culture to kind of project that onto other people who've been through trauma. And a big thing that I've heard since going through all of this, especially being so public about it on my social media and stuff, is, well, God only gives his hardest things to his toughest warriors.
Oh God.
I want to be inclusive to all of that, but I'm like, there is a narrow view here. People again, who got me through this? Not God. Me, dude. And
exactly.
It's important for everyone to I'm respectful of other people's religious backgrounds and everything, but I do think that people need to be respectful of mine. And I don't think God gave me that. I think that the guy who molested me gave me that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just my little opportunity to throw that. It's random, but I wanted to throw that in there with what Caitlin said.
Kate, keep going, Kate. What else?
I wanted to talk to Cindy. I love the things that you've been saying. I was raised by 2 retired police officers. I have 3 older brothers. I'm the first one in my family to go to college, so I've been hit with a lot of different things throughout my life. And I 100% agree. I think my parents did teach me self-defense lessons. I know how to use a gun even if I choose not to carry one, I know lots of different methods of how to protect myself, and I know that I'm deserving of kindness and respect, and I should be loved for who I am, and I don't have to meet other people's standards. But I think something that's really hard for people to grasp is I was that person before I was raped, and I'm still that person now. I was asleep when it started. And I figured out that my trauma response, and maybe Normanda can speak to this, is to freeze or to fawn. A lot of people think fight or flight. There's 4 responses. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. I froze when it started. And afterwards, I made sure that he was okay because I had started crying. And I felt like I had guilt tripped him.
Yeah.
It's a really complex topic. And I am not saying that anyone here has said anything wrong. I love this conversation.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure that listeners know you can do everything you can. It still might happen, but that is not your fault. It is not a failure on you. It is that person.
Yes.
You can be the best person on earth and shit can still happen to you. And you did not deserve it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I would say when it comes to that, because that is a common response or report I get from clients. It's like, oh my gosh, this happened. I woke up and my body froze. And then, oh, I hate when I hear this. People are like, why didn't you push them off? Are you kidding me? My body, what's happening is your body is trying to get you through that experience.
Yeah.
It is trying to help you survive it so
Yeah.
you can get up. And I think that whole checking on him is also that societal norm of we got to make sure he's okay. We got to make sure she's okay or whoever. When in reality, it's like, it's okay to cuss, Colleen,
You
on
can
here.
say
Oh,
whatever
we all
you
have
want.
been.
Okay. I don't
Yeah,
give a
go for
fuck
it.
how they're feeling. I
I
don't give a
love
fuck.
fuck. You can
Yeah.
say fuck all you want.
I don't care. I do not care how they're feeling because they did that to you, and so also too, I'm kind of curious, Zane. We haven't heard from you. What are your
I
thoughts
know,
about all
Zane.
Yeah.
this?
Where
Yeah,
are
I like to hear from
you?
you.
He's there. We're gonna bring out his a little bit of his platform, and I'm gonna grill him on some stuff. He doesn't know that yet, but go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, no, I'm just kind of just absorbing everything, and I really love hearing about this stuff. And what I was thinking is what I think is a huge issue is sometimes the way we treat survivors as if therapy is the only way and there's no other way to heal. I think that there's like multicultural, multidimensional ways to heal. And I think that when you hear about mental health and sexual health and you're hearing just, you need to go to therapy and you'll be fine. I hear that and they think that's the only solution. And I think, but there's more to it. Like there's no community. I understand why that's difficult because, outing yourself can be really damaging and a lot of things, but I wish there was more like just social awareness about it so that people can come together and speak on this stuff. And there are things like Take Back the Night, if you've heard of it. But it's just horrible because there was a time where I was doing this work and I was told, which I think it's awful. I don't know how everyone's going to feel. And this is coming from a peer educator, a sex educator that was helping survivors, deal with this. And they said that men don't deserve Take Back the Night. So they were not going to be inclusive to men for the event, and I just couldn't wrap my head around that. And their boss was there, and they told me to the side like, oh, they have to realize that this is not a gendered issue. And I'm like, well, but you were right there though. Why didn't you say anything? So there's a lot of things that are unacceptable, and I think it's horrible to hear stuff like that because hearing that, like, I wasn't there for services. I was there just helping out. But like, if a man did walk in and hear that, why would they want to say anything then? I wouldn't want to talk to that person. It's like it's moving away and it's creating this culture where all survivors can't speak on this because of like those guilty feelings, or immediately when you say that you were assaulted, they might say, what were you doing? Again, what were you wearing? Never of how are you feeling or anything like that. It's always about what you did. Automatically it's like, what did you do? And we never do that with other crimes, which I think is very interesting. A lot of other crimes we don't do that. I mean, I think we do, but there are plenty of crimes where we actually treat them as survivors or victims, and I think that's the reason. And so I would love to just see more mental health spaces, more cultural spaces that are dedicated to this so that people can experience, what it means to have that community. And I also think that it's important when we address, men who are, sexually assaulted, but also women who are assaulted by other women. I think that that's another demographic or another situation we don't hear a lot about, but I think it can happen a lot more than we think. I just don't know if I've never heard anyone talk about that. I think the first time I did was when we had the sexual assault training at my school, and there was two women, a couple of two women, and they talked about their previous experience being assaulted by another woman. And so I do find that interesting as well, that that's not talked about as much. And lastly, I know I'm talking a lot, but from all the stuff I've been hearing, I also wish we wouldn't see this stuff and say, oh, you were assaulted. That's such an oddity. I think it's obviously a horrible thing, but we should not treat it like it's an oddity. Being assaulted at this point is not odd. It happens all the time at this point. Like, it's in a way, it's like culturally instilled that when someone experiences that, it just happens all the time. And if it's not just assault, it's sexual harassment. It's been so normalized all the time that we hear about it a lot, but we still kind of treat it like stigmatized. And the same with suicide. Like so many suicide attempts happen, like so many, and so many completions happen. and yet we're still acting like, oh, suicide's such a taboo topic. It's really not, though. And if there's so many attempts, that also means that there's probably quadruple thoughts. So I think a lot of people have suicidal thoughts, but every time you speak on it, it's like, oh, we gotta get you in the emergency room. We gotta get you care right away. And of course that makes sense, but especially if you're a parent or something. But you have to understand that just let them tell you these things, and it may not be an emergency situation. I understand, though. It's very complicated, of course.
No, it is very complicated. You said so many great stuff, Zane, and that's why I'm so happy to have you as our male here this afternoon, this evening. I want to go back to a couple things. You talk mental health, disability, sexual assault, and then also communities like LGBTQ+, where the specific communities I don't think have a voice to really speak on, or a platform. And I was looking up some statistics before I hopped on here today, just to look at the percentage of gay couples where actually it's a higher percentage of sexual assault going on in certain communities as well. So thank you for speaking on that, because I think that needs to touch upon too. Like I said in the very beginning about sexual assault affects everyone. It affects all community minorities. It's a global pandemic as far as I'm concerned. And again, when you mention certain words like, someone who goes through a sexual assault, obviously it's a mental health situation, would be maybe in a position of suicide. And it should be talked about, and it shouldn't be taboo, and it shouldn't be a stigma, because gosh, I hate stigmas of mental health. And that's why I'm so proud to have the podcast, because I'm trying my best, along with you guys out there with so many different platforms, to get rid of these goddamn stigmas. It's enough already. It's like, okay, these things are existing, but let's talk about it. Get this person's support, create communities where people can go and speak, have a safe space. Normanda, your safe space, I love that you were mentioning in your therapy, is this oasis of a place where people go and they feel safe. People just want to be validated. People want to be heard. They don't want to feel alone. They want to be a part of a community. But when an assault or a trauma happens in anyone's life, specifically in a sexual assault situation, they close down, and it might be difficult for them if they do not have the community or resources or people that want to support them, or people around them that just don't know what to do.
I think Zane's correct. I mean, therapy for me was hugely important, and it's still a part of my life now. EMDR saved my life. I wrote extensively in the book about how therapy was super, super helpful for me. And I think you're absolutely right. More and more we have to say, this is it's not an anomaly. This is something that's normal, and it's fine, and it's okay. And a layered approach is absolutely essential. You have to have community. You have to have people around you. You're going to therapy once a week, once every couple of weeks. Well, what's happening for the rest of your life, the rest of your days? You have to be surrounded by people. You have to find your people who can be that for you. It's hugely, hugely important. And if it's one, that's great. If it's more, that's great too. I mean, it's not a matter of going out and spilling your guts to every person on the street. It's finding safe people who are going to be there and support you and uplift you. And I know you talked about the religious piece of it. I'm always appalled when I hear things about, and it's primarily in the South, they're all Christians, and like I'm a devout Christian, but that's not a God I would ever serve, who would allow something, who does that to teach you a lesson. That's utter and complete bullshit, and I can say that. But I will say there's a wonderful scripture in the Old Testament where Moses is standing on a hill and the Israelites are fighting against the Amalekites. And as long as he's holding up the staff, the one that he's, does the let my people go staff, the Israelites are winning, but he gets tired and his arms start falling down and the Israelites are getting wiped out. And so his brother Aaron and his general Hur came alongside of him. They brought him a rock to sit on, and they stood on either side of him and they held up his arms. And they held up his arms. And then the Israelites were able to win the battle. we can't do it alone. We're not supposed to do it alone. We're always supposed to have somebody who's going to bring the rock for us to sit on, somebody who's going to hold up our arms when we can't hold up our arms anymore. And if you're at a place where you're strong and you are healed, then by God, find somebody and be that person for them. Be their Aaron, be their her, bring them the rock to sit on. But we either are needing support or we need to be support. But
Yeah.
we were designed to live in community. We can't do this by ourselves, and we can't put it all on people like Normanda to heal our souls.
Yeah. And the one thing I'll clarify, I tell people, I was like, I don't fix anybody. I fix no one. My job is, to me as a counselor, is to be there and give you support and a space for you to do that work. You do the healing. You do that work. And Zane, I think you're completely right. People don't have to go to therapy. They don't. People can heal in their own way. But I think where that healing happens though is A, they have a healthy support system.
Mhm.
B, they grew up in environments that were validating and helped them develop skill sets to do that. It also is so crucial of when a sexual assault or any kind of trauma that has happened to a person, when they tell someone, what their reaction is. Are they sitting there going, hey, what do you need? I believe you. And that statement alone, I believe you, and genuinely just shut up after that point. Don't say, I believe you, but you don't believe them then. It's, I believe you. What do you need? And I really wish that my doors were way slower, to be honest. But I think our society is reactive and not proactive. We're not addressing the real issue of why these things are going on. We're so, again, with suicide, just because someone has suicidal ideations, and Zane, you are right. Suicidal ideations, very common. Everybody has had them. I'll be honest, I've had them a long time ago. Specifically, I have hypothyroidism. When my thyroid was severely out of whack, that's a symptom of that is severe depression. Mine was medically induced. I got to a point where I had suicidal ideations with a plan. And I was like, ooh, hey, this isn't good. And so I went to my doctor. I was like, hey, we need to get this tested. There's a history there in my family. And so, but if my doctor would have been like, okay, off you go, I'd be like, hold up, I'm fine right now. Like I had this like 2 days ago. I'm safe, and as a counselor, and not all counselors are created the same. And that can be difficult as well. Not all counselors come from the same training, the same background. So there are times you may go see one, and unfortunately, maybe they're not a good fit. Maybe they don't have the training, or we are supposed to be objective and they're not. And they're putting their own views on you, which is, I won't get on that soapbox because we don't have enough time for that. But a counselor is supposed to be objective. And so, um, going back to being able to say suicidal ideations are common, that the counselor or whoever, I sit with my clients and go, okay, well, tell me what this thought was you had. And when was the last time you had this thought? And I'd create a safety plan with them, which says, okay, here's a triggering events, here are warning signs, here are steps I'm going to take. And I put on their crisis information. If we get down to step like 5, my information's on there, but of course I'm not around 24/7. So then they have the crisis information. I'm calling 911. But again, we're not addressing what is causing these things. And because we want to make suicide taboo and sexual assault taboo, there's so many things we're so behind on that it would be interesting to see in the next 50 years or so where all this change may go. And just doing this right here, I don't think anyone would have thought we'd be sitting here on a podcast talking about this. This would have been taboo, if we had the technology 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, thank you for your words. I mean, amazing. Yeah. It's also, it's always picking or finding the right practitioner. I think we discussed so many different entities of therapy, not therapy, having a community, not having a community, not feeling alone, validation. Kate and Jen, of course, being a part of Walk with Dignity, having Cor-a that I believe clearly, as I mentioned before with that company that I'm connecting to have that type of an organization or nonprofit at every college campus where people would be able to have access to that and they would know about it as part of checking in as a freshman and knowing that this type of thing, is available to them. And back to Zane for a moment, just, touching upon, you mentioned, I lost my thought for a second, about the people with disabilities regarding sexual assault, and also the gay communities where, you write so many different publications in Positive Vibes that you touched upon that as well. If you want to just speak on that for a sec.
Yes, I did want to respond to Normanda's point about,
Sure.
like when someone comes out and says they were, assaulted, and we say, "I believe you." I hate that we have to say that though. I think it's unfortunate that we have to say, "I believe you," as if it's not already the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's sad, and I think that's also, and that's just this built-in fear where it's like, "Oh my God, they're not going to believe me." That's the last thing you should be thinking about. Is if they're going to believe you. You should already know that they're just going to support you. I think it's sad that we have to come to that. And that's the same thing for like suicide and mental health as well. It's like, oh, here we go again. They're faking suicide for the attention. I've been told that. And so, stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, you encourage me to open up, but when you do, it gets shattered like that. So it's like, what do we do when it comes to that? And I realize I can't find support in the ways I wanted to. And I think that's unfortunate, but but anyways, but your other point about the queer community, I appreciate people who are queer that are open about this stuff. And again, I think it's another taboo subject, and I think that there is a huge stigmatization when it comes to when people are assaulted who are queer. I don't know why though. I'm like definitely.
It's purity culture. Like we think like if someone is bisexual, like I'm pansexual. If someone's pansexual, they're more promiscuous or they're slutty or they're whatever. And so therefore maybe it didn't really happen to them. Maybe they were asking it's a very much, sorry to jump in, but super intertwined. Yeah.
Not very cool. I mean, I identify as pansexual too, and they definitely change sometimes, but no, I can understand that. And also just like, there's such a stigma of being queer. It's like, why do you want to come forward and say that as well? Like all of these other identities are pounding on you. It's like, you already are coming out about like suicide or mental health. Now you're going to say you're raped by a man. And it's like, I don't want to hear that. I appreciate your lifestyle, or, I'm okay with your lifestyle, but I don't want to hear that. And so there's so many reasons why people will, stigmatize that. And I also, and I think there's a lot going on.
With the stigmas, just to further like what Zane was saying. So I know Caitlin is a similar wavelength to me, and obviously Zane has not told me too he's pansexual, but I think for me, so I came out to my family like a lot older than like, I don't know how everyone didn't know, but people like didn't know in my family. They just assume it's the same thing. Like they assumed that I was straight, and I came out when I was older, told some of my family, and I think a part of me, I felt for a long time like, oh, if I was to come forward about my sexual assault, this is another thing I'm having to, here we go, another thing I have to come forward about. Like, and I felt like I didn't want to be like, drama or whatever. And I think that's just tying that into, the queer community. But I wanted, this is kind of a separate note here, but about the stigmas of like healing and going to therapy and everything, kind of doing a backtrack that I like have to pin everything together. But the stigmas on, healing. So obviously not everyone can go to therapy, but if you're lucky enough to, that's great, or, harness some sort of mental health kind of tool around you. But I want to start like destigmatizing normal human emotions, like being fucking pissed off. Like when I was assaulted, for me, being angry was a huge catalyst for me to like find self-worth. And I think a lot of it is, oh, you've been assaulted, go to therapy, do the healing, and then you will be complete. You will make it on the other side. You will be a whole person again. But it's important to remember as a victim, like, you're still a whole person after it happens. All of your emotions that you experience until, quote, healing is complete is a part of the whole process, and it's necessary. And there might come a time where you never feel like you're, quote, healed. You probably won't be the same person as you were before, but you are still just as much whole, and life is still going to be great. And it's just about continuing that process. It's about management. And I think, you know, for people that have been sexually assaulted and people that haven't been sexually assaulted, there's a huge divide in terms of perspective. Like, oh, she's been assaulted or he's been assaulted. We're going to wait until the process of healing is complete, and then they'll be back to the way that I want them to be. And it's like, no, this is, you know, it's okay to be pissed off. It's okay to change. It's okay to, and that's, of course you're going to, like, and it's fine, you know, it's a part of life. And I think that, well, it's not fine. It's an unfortunate part of life, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I just think destigmatizing the whole process, like, it seems like we are super that Puritan culture, like, expecting us to act a certain way, be lovely, be sweet, be okay, be providing for the world, like, in your process of healing. And it's like, dude, you can just be pissed off and it's fine.
Yes.
Like,
Your emotions are valid.
and you're still dope, you're still great, everything is okay. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
I think that oh, sorry.
Oh,
no,
no,
I'm
go
dead.
ahead.
Zane, go ahead.
No, great. No, thanks for that, Jen. And I think that one thing that people don't understand about healing and mental health is this is not linear. It's not a linear thing. People go
Progress
like,
isn't linear.
it's like you go. I mean, I think it's such an interesting concept to be like, oh, this happened to you, so you go to therapy and you'll be fine. Why do we think that? It's something that may maybe be carried forever. Depends on the person. And so I think it's really interesting. And then when people go, well, how are you, like, having suicidal thoughts? Why are you so sad? You've gone to therapy. It's like, it's a journey. Come on. People like,
management.
why do we, I don't know why we think it's like a linear thing that you're just going to get better. It's not like medicine. And it doesn't matter. Don't we know that in medicine, sometimes things happen? It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
And you know, I'm like, people, hello, I'm not a miracle worker. Like, I'm not, come talk to me and whoop, you're good. I mean, that's not realistic at all. And, you know, and I think, Zane, you brought up a good point. If you have, let's say, type 2 diabetes, which my dad has, your blood sugar goes off for a while. You know, you have to have insulin. Just because I've gone to the doctor for diabetes doesn't mean whoop, whoop, I'm done, I'm good, you know. And I tell people, some people may have to go through, I've had clients say, well, I've been in therapy 3 or 4 times, but I don't know why was I quote unquote healed the first time from therapy? And I'm like, well, hold up. This is not linear. This is maybe that time in therapy, this is all your brain could focus on. So this is what you focused on. I find mental health a lifelong journey, and how I see myself as a counselor is to give people tools and empowerment for them that last their whole life. I work myself out of a job. I don't want to keep you forever at all. One, I want to retire at some point and become a yoga instructor. So that's, you know, that joke. But it's like, but it's not ethical. And therapy is not a cure-all, just like one medication isn't a cure-all at all. It's a whole process. And also your brain has those defense mechanisms that it may not unlock certain things. And my job is not to like force people to unlock things that their brain does not remember. That can be very traumatic in of itself. And I tell clients, you may remember, you may never remember, but your brain's doing it to protect you at all costs. And that's what is important. There was something else someone said, and I was like, oh, yeah, I want to tap into that, but I couldn't remember. So if it comes to me, I'll jump in there. But
I think that, I also think that, like this idea of something that's linear, that's just not realistic. I feel like when you do that, you set up people to fail.
Yeah.
Because when you tell people that they need to automatically get better from, I don't know, going to therapy for a couple months, and they don't, how does that make them feel? Now they have like this self-shame and guilt because they think they did something wrong. Like, how come these people can do these sessions and they're better? I think that's just a form of toxic positivity.
It's
Yes.
toxic positivity. I was
Yes.
gonna say toxic
Yes.
positivity.
Absolutely.
Yes, I
And
was
I
waiting.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
I know I talked about the magazine, Positivized Magazine. No, we're not toxic Positivized Magazine. We talk about how trying to appreciate yourself, but it's freaking hard. It's not easy.
Authentic vibes. Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're hugely against toxic positivity, and I think like actually stigmatizes mental health a lot more
Yes.
because you're treating it like almostly like you're just kind of like downgrading their trauma. It's like, oh, just feel good. It's like, well, it's fine not to feel good. Come on now, you don't need to feel
Yeah.
good.
Or you're like, oh, I didn't think of that. What? I didn't think just
Yeah.
to feel better. Like, wow.
Yeah, like,
My
that's what-
favorite is
Wow.
when people are like, you have depression? Why not just think happy thoughts? I'm like, oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
meditate.
You have asthma? Why don't you just breathe?
Yes.
Meditate. Just meditate.
Yes.
It's like,
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Caitlin,
it's
you're
ridiculous.
Caitlin's amazing. Caitlin's waving her little hand. And I'm like, just speak, Caitlin. She's like, and I'm trying to
You're out
answer,
there,
like,
you are.
I'm like looking to try to like type some stuff in, but I'm paying attention to this conversation. Anyway,
Just never want to
Caitlin.
interrupt anyone.
Caitlin is so like, hi. Go ahead, Caitlin. You're the floor.
No, I just wanted to like give like I guess like a personal insight into some of the stuff Normanda said, and also Zane. Actually, I think everyone. We're having a great conversation here. I've been in and out of therapy for the last 4 years. I've had 3 different therapists. My first one was through my college. I went to Penn State. Shout out Penn State. You guys need more therapists. I will call you out. But my first therapist was a grad student. I had great success with her. But what we focused on was what I was struggling with most at the time, which was the fact that I actively wanted to die. Like that was what I needed to focus on for obvious reasons. And I finished up therapy that semester. Like it was only like a certain amount of time I was allowed to do it for free, which is dumb, but whatever. And you know, I made it through that and I was like, I think I still need some more help. So I found another therapist, and in there I happened to focus on mostly my familial relationships. You know, I hadn't spoken to my brothers in a long time, and part of it was that they didn't know that I had been raped. They didn't know that I had tried to kill myself. They didn't know that I was queer. Just all these different things, like how would that affect my relationships? And I knew that would affect my mental health. So that's what I focused on with my second therapist. And with my third therapist, I focused on my relationship with myself. I was dismissed from therapy about 2 months ago because we just got to the point where I was like, hey, this is what I did. This is how I felt. This is how I reacted. Did I do that right? Yeah, great job. I feel good about that. I've been on my own, like not in therapy for about 2 or 3 months now. That's awesome. But if I feel the need to go back in, that's okay. And I know it's okay. And I don't feel bad about that. Sometimes my mom will be like, hey, you doing okay? Like, do you feel like you need to talk to someone? Right now, the answer is no. But I always tell her it's okay if that answer changes, because that means I'm asking for help and I'm taking care of myself.
Yes.
It's crazy how, you know, when you go through life, you focus on different things at different times. Normanda's right. Like your brain unlocks different things at different times. Like I said earlier, I fully didn't realize that I had been raped for like a solid 6 months. Like,
me too, so, you know, it's,
you know, like I was busy. It wasn't a priority.
And your brain goes into denial stage because it's like, what? And also too, I think goes back on society, we're just fucked. I think too, because we don't have that education or that that community again to be like, oh shit, this wasn't okay. I remembered what I was gonna talk about. I believe, Jen, you were talking about how, and Zane, how you go through therapy or people are like, oh, you should be coming out the other side, a whole person and who you were before. One part of the journey of repackaging a person's history, their trauma, is we have to grieve for the person that was before the trauma. and also to be able to step into the person that I want to be moving forward. Maybe I can bring back aspects of that person. Like, I have some clients that are like, man, I loved, drawing, and, depression symptoms, can keep you from doing things you like. I want to be a caring person. I want to be in a relationship again. I want to feel safe. Okay, great. We want to bring those back, but we have to grieve for the person it was before. And then we're also going to figure out who I am now, where I am now from before, and then who I want to become and stepping into that. So I don't know your all's thoughts about that, or if that's something you all relate to.
I definitely, okay. I think that there's most people, it's interesting because in this like people have been sexually assaulted. I feel like you do kind of get shoved into this like identity crisis. Like you look back and you're like, oh, like who was I before my trauma? Like, do I even know who I am? Like, what was going on with all of that? But I think that, in general in life, it's actually really normal to like develop and change as a person. So I think a big part of grieving who you used to be is also like having the acceptance of, hey, it is so normal to change, like in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, and you don't have to like give yourself that self-compassion, like, oh, I haven't lost anything. I'm actually just doing the normal human development of moving on to the next part of my life. And I think like as sexual assault survivors, you really cling on to, you compare yourself to everybody else and you go, oh, I'm supposed to be the way I used to be because that's what happened to everybody else because they weren't sexually assaulted. But that's really not the case. Like everyone changes. And I think just giving yourself, self-compassion, like throughout that whole thing.
I love that.
Another thing that I think, sorry, Elaine.
No, Zane, go.
Honestly, I know this doesn't really have anything to do with it, but I have like two things I'm thinking. There's also, I'm curious what you all think about like when you kind of weaponize going to therapy for me, or like gaslighting it. Because for me, there have been times where I'm very frustrated, and then I'll simply be told, "This is why you need to see a therapist." And at this point, right now, I don't want to see one. I mean, I want to one day on my terms, but not someone saying you need to go see one.
Right.
And it's but if someone goes and says you need to see a therapist and it's coming from love, I get that. Then I'm like, I want to hear that. No, it's you need to see a therapist because obviously I frustrated you, but you need to get help.
Something is wrong with you. Yeah.
Instead of going like, oh, maybe we should all work on this together, or you're just too sensitive. That's what I hear. That really frustrates me because that's like weaponizing mental health, where it's used when you don't want to, like kind of reflect who you are and how you've been hurting me. So there's that. And then I always wonder, since I'm really active on LinkedIn and I see this all the time, I feel like why is like hustling so normalized and like getting a job? Like getting a job and mental health, like we expect people to experience resiliency. They're expected to be resilient. To be strong, you have to be resilient. Why do people have to go through this horrible stuff to be good people? Like, why do they have to be resilient or have to hustle all the time? Why can't people just have a break? I'm curious what y'all think.
Yeah.
One second. I'm sorry, Normanda. I just want to.
No.
Resiliency, Zane, and I've notes on top of notes on top of notes here that I wanted to just throw out there. Resiliency, and again, not being a sexual assault survivor, and people that and to Jen and to Caitlin to comment on this for a moment as well, is that and Normanda, it's a process. It's a process to get to where you feel empowered. And that's really circling back to the beginning of the whole conversation about empowerment and finding a voice, or having a voice, and having resiliency. And someone who has not experienced sexual assault, like anything else in life that you have not experienced, you wouldn't understand that unless you've been through it. And that's why finding a community where other people have experienced is incredible, because you share that commonality. Although it may be completely a different narrative and a different story, it's a thread that you would share together. But the empowerment aspect, or the resiliency aspect, and back to I just wanted to comment on therapy in general, because I see a therapist now, and I've seen therapists in the past, the good, the bad, and the ugly, or any type of a practitioner where it may not be the best fit. is that you have to be the judge of that. If it's not really someone where you feel that you're getting anywhere, then you need to move on, like you would from a doctor or to a dentist or anybody else that you're seeing that you don't feel like they're connecting to you in a way that you want them to be. But therapy is not the foolproof entity, or is taking medication, or maybe you're taking medication and therapy. I think there has to be a balance. There has to be a lifestyle. There has to be a community. There has to be, thinking of my personal life and my personal journey, getting in touch with what makes you happy. But when someone experiences any type of a trauma, other people around them, if they love them, need to give them that safe space to be able to do it. And I think that as a society in a Western culture that we live in, and even globally, because sexual assault is not talked about in countries that I was connected to when I was teaching, such as China or India, and a lot of countries where forget about it. You never talked about, forget about sexual assault, forget about mental health. That doesn't even exist. But to just, it's all about just validating, people just in general. And I think as a culture, we just don't do it. That's my piece.
Yeah. Something that just spiraling off that. I know we've been on and we said we're gonna do an hour. It's like 2 hours.
I know. It's okay. It's okay.
But I was gonna say, so obviously therapy, just off of what you and Zane were saying, therapy is not like the be all end all, but everyone's form of therapy is different. So I really think it's about like trying to listen, again, going back to way earlier in the conversation about your own personal boundaries, like knowing what you need and not being afraid to just ask for it. Like going back to that part of like, okay, I don't know if I need therapy, or I don't know if I need to find new friends. I don't know if I need to find a new community. I don't know if I need to just simply Google about what I'm experiencing, like the biggest to smallest thing. But I do think that, so, okay, shout out to John Berg. That's my therapist. He's like literally the best thing that's like ever happened to me in my life. I've had like 10 therapists before him, and they were, for me, therapy worked for me. It is working for me, but I've had like 100 therapists in my childhood. I grew up with a very traumatic family life and needed it from a young age. And all of the therapists before him, I really just did not get a ton of help from, or at least it wasn't working for me. And so my current therapist's name is John. He's great. He helps me a ton, but he described therapy outside of just the modality of like what you think of going and sitting in an office and talking to somebody. He described therapy in a really great way, which to me resonated a lot. It was at the time when I decided to go to trial, I only had like 3 people in my life, and didn't really have any sort of, I was dealing with a lot of like suicidal thoughts. I was on crutches at the time. I had a knee surgery, and I was in a really bad place. And so my bubble was like literally this big. And when one thing would happen to that bubble, like one little piece of that bubble got knocked out, he would say, I would be like, this is the worst thing ever. My mental health is completely falling apart. And he was like, well, Jen, of course it is, because your bubble is this big. So when a third of it goes, there's not a lot left. So the bigger that you can make your bubble, and I'm not talking about just community of like friends, I'm talking about whatever you could be therapeutic for you to do, whether that's hobbies, whether that's Googling, whether that's journaling, whether that's reading, whether that's just letting yourself cry and be pissed off. You have to make your bubble as big as you can, so that way when one piece of it goes, because oftentimes when you're dealing with mental health, when one part of it goes, it can be really traumatic. So he really described it really great, like looking at it as a pie, and the bigger you can make your therapeutic bubble, the more solid it's going to feel when a part of it doesn't work out, which is only life, because it will at some point. So my view on that is therapy is great, but everyone has their own, everyone has their own therapeutic method. You just have to
Absolutely.
keep expanding.
No, absolutely.
Therapy is an incredible tool, but it's one of many.
Yes.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely. Because like, Zane, like you were saying about people using it as a weapon, first of all, I think people who use it as a weapon, I'd be like, what's their motivation in my life then? Are they just, Brene Brown talks about how people that blame, her research shows it's for them to discharge discomfort. And I think when people do that, they're so uncomfortable with sitting with vulnerability and with sitting someone who is being vulnerable with them. Now, are they doing a healthy way? Absolutely not. And I'm not excusing that behavior, but they're using it as a way to go, well, go tell someone else. Well, shouldn't therapy be working? And to me, it's telling them they got their own stuff to work on that they need to address. But therapy, I mean, I tell people, I'm like, look, I see you once a week for maybe anywhere between 50 minutes to 60 minutes. Okay. The work happens outside of here. And we are here. This is kind of like, I think of it as like in football. Okay, timeout. You come to therapy. Let's look at the game plan. What you got? Who's your players? And not just community, like you said, Caitlin and Jen, but also like as a counselor, one thing I love about my training is we look at the whole picture. And I have this thing called wellness wheel, and it's a literal wheel, and it has these connected parts, which is our emotional part, our intellectual part, our financial part, our health part, all these things that people can and need to tap into. And Zane, I think it's great that you're like, hey, I want to do therapy on my terms, and people can do their own therapy, their own healing. They don't necessarily have to have a therapist, but that we're a resource. And I think people forget that it's a resource, just like going to a doctor is a resource. And we have to have balance and understand that it's not just what you do. Your therapist, one, should never say, I'm going to fix you, run, don't go see that person. They shouldn't say, you need therapy forever. No, it's, again, like Caitlin, I like how you said, like, I can come in and out as I need to. And I think it's fantastic that you're like, hey, I'm good. I got the tools I need right now. If I need it, I know I can go back and get a tune up. I like to think of it as like, okay, let's see where I am with this and go forth. But I do think now it's almost like we're trying to find a fix all for things rather than going, again, what's causing this as a society? What are we responsible for? But also, too, like just talking about, building up that empowerment within ourselves. There's other things we can connect to as well.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Just a couple of thoughts I was thinking as you were speaking, Amanda, is that, of course, we're all individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is unique in their own way. Pre-trauma and then post-trauma. We all morph and we change. Jen, you were saying that as well. Like, in your life, if you had trauma, of course, you're changed, but you do change in other ways as well without having trauma. So we're all individuals, and I feel that the healing process, as I said earlier, is so different because we're all unique to ourselves. I think society has a long way to go to understand assault, sexual assault in general, to the taboos, to the stigmas, to all the communities out there that that experience this. And that's pretty much my piece. I think also I just want to comment what Cindy had said, and of course I want to thank Cindy and of course Julia that had to hop off, is that when Cindy was mentioning that everyone deserves to be safe, regardless. We all came into this world as babies, and a trauma situation happened to us, and people are just trying to figure out, like, what the hell, and like, how do I get through this, or what do I do? And the word safe is, yes, safe, deserve to be safe, absolutely. And empowerment as we sit here this evening for our moments together have been beautiful. And I feel that so many of you have these incredible do have these platforms of expression. And as I said in the very beginning of this conversation, how honored I am to have all of you. I just want to leave it with this piece. Of course, the podcast, and some of you may know this from speaking to me in the past, is called Coming from the Heart. And my heart is your heart, and our hearts are completely, uniting here. I'm going to start getting a little emotional here. I just want to hear, if everyone, or all of you, shall I say, want to just comment on possibly a specific time. It could be any time. It could be the present, the past, the future, where a situation has or will have touched you or enamored you in a certain way that made you feel enamored. You keep using the word enamored, or special. It could be a person. It could have been your therapist, Jen. It could have been any situation where you feel the empowerment. It could relate to, of course, circling back to what we're talking about here today, is sexual assault, and how when voices come together, Zane, as we all know, you have strength and you have resiliency. So whoever, Kate, we're going to pick on you first because you're so cute with your hand waving tonight. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh no, but you didn't give me time to pick.
All right, well, just you could have two. We'll allow that. You know.
A time when I felt special. I think it's almost
or a situation that enamored you. I mean, again, it's the heart part, like coming from the heart, something that had touched you or you touched them. It could be relating to, of course, empowerment, you know, where you, I mean, you're shining, like you're glowing. So
like, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
I think for a long time in my life, I struggled to like myself, let alone love myself. And I'm at the point in my life now where I do like myself. I do accept myself, flaws and all. And I'm working on the love part. There are certainly days where I'm like, I'm the coolest person in this room. And there's days when I want to crawl back under the covers and cry because, oh my God, no one can see me. It's just part of the process. But I think I'm very fortunate that I've found some really wonderful people in my life, my best friends, you know, they have this way of lifting me up that I could never thank them enough. And like my current partner right now, he's amazing. Jeremy, if you're listening, hi. And just sometimes he'll just say something about the way that he sees me. And it's like, oh my God, I've never given myself credit for that. I've never been like, oh, that is a cool talent I have. Oh my God, that is a like really badass thing I said to that creep at the bar. Like, he celebrates me in all these little ways that make me realize that I am special. And I don't mean that in the way where I'm better than everyone. I don't even mean that in the way where I'm an oddity, although I think sometimes I am.
You are!
Jen also hypes me up. I love Jen. But I mean it in the way that no one else has my experiences. Like, Jen and I have a lot in common, which is unfortunate at times, but you know, like, we're still two entirely different, unique people with our own inner lives and our own complexities. And that is so beautiful. No one else in the rest of time and space is going to be exactly who I am right now. And I think when we recognize that, something just beautiful can happen. And yeah, I've been through some shit and I shouldn't have. But I'm still here and I'm still me, and that's amazing. And the days when I can really feel that and embody that, it feels like I can take on the world. And it's all about community. It's all about loving myself. It's all about doing all the work in all different aspects of my life. And it's hard. And sometimes I drop pieces, and that's okay, because I know I can pick them back up. And I know I don't have to pick them back up alone, because I know people love me and that I'm deserving of that love. So hopefully that answers your question, Helene.
Yeah, of course it answers. I'm going to give you a snap here. Beautiful, Kate, beautiful. And you know what? You are awesome and you do rock. And yeah, and thank you for your piece. Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, as always.
Oh, please, always, Kate. All right, Zane, what do you got?
Oh, yeah, I know. Since I have to go soon, I'm happy to
I know, but we're going to bolt through this. Okay, go ahead.
So for me, I'll mention just two things. It's not like specific events, but just the entirety of my mom. Her support always made me feel validated, and she did pass away in January of 2021. We're actually mourning her tomorrow. So I say mourning because people know what that is, but it's actually a celebration. It's called Celebration I'm giving her eulogy tomorrow. I'm very excited. It's been a hard time, not just from the grieving, but just doing this, and not because it's a lot of work, just because there's some attitudinal things that are going on there. So every single time I think of my mom, I feel, like so loved and supported, and it's kind of a loss when I don't get to physically feel that anymore. But I think it's inspired me even more to keep fighting for her so she can kind of live vicariously through everyone. There's that, and then my partner, which was a hard journey because we have a age gap of like 30 years, not 30 years, and it's just a huge taboo thing to see. And I think that people see us and think it's weird. I'm being taken advantage of. Whatever people were thinking, it was hard for my family to accept it. But every single day, kind of like what Kate was saying, was just that feeling that they celebrate you in these many ways that you don't expect it. If it's just the way you look, or I don't like the way I look, like my body, but he like loves every part of me. So it's things I don't often get to hear. And honestly, you know what I find? I find this crap. I find I find crap when like, I know this is like a RuPaul thing, but they always say if you can't love yourself, how you gonna love someone else? I don't believe that. I don't think you gotta love anyone. You don't think you have to love yourself to love others. It's a sad thing if you don't love yourself, but you love others. But like, don't downplay the love other people have for you. That's just as important, in my opinion. So, because I was never at a place where I love myself, but because of my mom and my partner, I love myself now. I think that's important to that the love you can get from people is just as strong as it is within yourself, and can lead you to that point. Because you don't have to do it by yourself. Because every time I hear it, it's like you have to love yourself first. It's like, that's hard though, and I think that's, for some people it's impossible. Some people need that extra push and support, kind of like I did. So if that answers your question, Helene, thanks for having me on again.
Oh, Zane, I love you always. We're peas of a pod. So, but yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for commenting on that, and your mom, of course, and the special person that you have in your life. And I agree with what you're saying. Absolutely. You don't have to love yourself sometimes. Sometimes people didn't have that upbringing to be able to feel that certain way, but maybe that comes at another point in their life. So thank you, Zane. A kiss to you. Jen, what do you got?
So you perfectly like pivoted by saying, not having the support. But when I was growing up, I didn't have like any like family unit, or I had moved around a lot, so I didn't have a lot of friends like that were stable. So it's been very foreign to me to be in a relationship. Who he's sitting right here in the living room, but I'm not showing him because he doesn't want to be shown.
That's
but
okay.
It's been really foreign to me to be in a relationship that I feel like valued. Like when he started treating me nice, like we started dating, I was like, sus, like, you're being way too nice to me. What do you want? And lo and behold, he just wants to love me. So we've been together for 3 years, and it's been like the best thing that's ever happened to me. I was a man hater before my current boyfriend, so it's been really nice to have like my faith restored in men, because obviously it had been ruined by all the things that happened to me, predominantly by men. So he definitely gives me like all of this love that is, to me, is so new, and I'm still learning. Like, oh, like when you asked that question, I mean, you're like, what makes you feel enamored and loved? I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. Wait, my boyfriend. Like, that's amazing that I get to experience that now. So
it's beautiful.
Oh, he's right here.
Hi. Welcome. Okay, thank you for listening to this.
Yeah,
okay.
He's a listener.
Okay. Normanda, what do you got?
So I have just two things. One's my spirituality, because I find that very important. I have my whole life, but especially with what I do. The other part is I always wanted to marry my best friend, and his name is Ryan. Plus, I loved his last name, Lawless. So, I mean, hello. But he has been there for me through many, many things. We've been together 15 years total. So we've literally grown up together, and it makes me feel emotional to see that he sees and supports the passion I have and my own traumas I've been through. And yeah, just it fills my heart with gratitude to have someone I can connect with as my best friend and also my partner. So that's where I feel special.
Oh my God. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you my heart to heart because I never say anything. I usually just ask people, but I don't really share. But I figured I'm going to share right now. I have to say my family. You know, I feel that absolutely my husband is a huge, huge supporter of my journey, of what, you know, I've been through. I'm trying to keep it together, not cry through half of this. And Alexandra hopping on from day one with the podcast. I mean, she has been an immense amount of the sport. And my son, who just rocks it out every day with me. And yeah, they are my heart of coming from the heart. And these are the people in my life that I am so blessed to have. So I've never done a heart-to-heart for myself. So what can I say to you guys? You are incredible. You should know you're incredible because you are incredible. You are loved from this community and on so many communities, and your voices resonate with so much, so much. It goes a little bit even beyond the sexual assault aspect of empowerment. I think we spoke of so many different topics and so forth. The only thing that we didn't really truly get to, which I was going to mention, of course, are the specific laws that are now on the books for sexual assault. I know from state to state, it differs, and hopefully through the administration that we have right now, things can be even better for sexual assault situations. I mean, comparatively to other countries out there, the United States clearly is much better, but I think we definitely still have a long way to go with this in general. I think that specifically, I keep using the word specific, let me try a different word, college campuses, situations where, you know, sexual assault is rampant in different communities where sexual assault is seen more. There's a lot to do, but I think that we also, besides mentioning the negative, I think there's a lot of positivity of things that are happening, and things that, again, a conversation like this that I think Normanda mentioned, or Jen mentioned, or someone mentioned, about the fact that we can actually sit here on a platform of coming from the heart. When I sat there almost 2 years ago, I never in my entire dream would ever imagine ever having collaborations like this. So all I can say, as I said in the beginning, this absolutely comes from my heart. And as I say, the voices are strong and great here today, and so many people out there will connect to all of you. If they're going through a crisis or situations, there'll be resources. I will promote this on stories and a bunch of stuff. If anybody knows me, I always got a story going there for something, different people that I connect to. So this will be on Spotify and Apple. Alex, who's probably sleeping by now because he's in Spain, will be getting that together. Yeah, so all right, guys. I have to use the bathroom, so I gotta go. So it was so nice to see all of you. Thank you from my heart to you guys. Have a great night. Enjoy wherever you are, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye,
Bye, guys.
everyone.
Okay.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
guys. See ya.